Welcome back, everyone. What a great conference we've had so far, and we are just halfway through, so lots more companies coming to you. Let's introduce our next one. We have International Battery Metals Limited, trades on the OTC Pink sheets under IBATF and on the CSE under IBAT. It's a company focused towards furthering the clean tech revolution by providing important minerals and materials used for making batteries for energy storage. Please welcome its CEO, John Burba. Hi, John. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Anna. I appreciate the introduction. And I do want to make a comment on your introduction. It was excellent. We can do other elements. We don't ever talk about that. Our primary focus is lithium right now. Pardon me. Because it's so significant, but we can use this, we can augment the technology to do copper, zinc, whatever that we see that makes sense. But I want to really discuss today what we have accomplished over the last several months, particularly during the summer. So we put our plant together on a resource that is a lithium-bearing resource here in the United States, and we started extracting lithium from that. Actually, we were trucking brine from a resource to the fab shop area in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and we started processing that on a semi-commercial basis. We couldn't. Our system will draw such a stunning amount of brine through it. We couldn't deliver enough trucks to run the entire system, so we focused on one of the extractors. During that time, we probably processed about 60 or 70,000 gallons of brine through the system. We did, in fact, we looked at two different resources, and I'm under confidentiality on those, so I can't tell you where they're located, but they are lithium-containing brines. And in both cases, we were very successful in extracting the lithium and rejecting the impurities. On the second resource, we brought SLR out to look at the process and the equipment and to review it. And we asked them to opine on 5 different points. One was the modularity and mobility and practicality of our plant design. The second one was lithium extraction capabilities, and then lithium recovery from the absorbent. And those are actually 2 different things. Impurity rejection and water recovery, and then also cyclability. In other words, running multiple cycles and it's performing the same way each time. So they opined on that, and they wrote a really great report. We put our press release out on this last week, and they confirmed all of those things. The brines that we used in both cases were pretty low lithium content brines, only about 250 parts per million. And of course, compared to the brines in South America, these are not nearly as concentrated. There we would be looking at 800 to possibly as much as 2,500 or 3,000 parts per million. But even so, we extracted a very significant quantity of the lithium. And one of the key things to remember here is when we talk about lithium recovery globally, you have to recognize that from brines, the solar evaporation processes only recover about 20 to 30% of the brine. FMC, which is the only commercial DLE plant in the world, does in the range of 40%. So in this particular test, we were around 68% recovery. And I think that we'll be able to push that up as we move forward. There are a number of things that we can do there. But one of the key things on this was, and SLR was very impressed, and they opined on this, is our ability to reject the impurities. And that is the real driver for product recovery. If one extracts lithium from brine and you can't reject the impurities, then you have a huge cost downstream in removing the impurities, and recovery rates from that step go down. And that's exactly what happens in the solar evaporation processes. So we have a very, very efficient impurity rejection system. So we're very pleased with the SLR report, and I think that that validates what we've been doing. They were, with respect to the mobility and portability, they were very impressed with that also. So all in all, it was a great report, and you can go to you can check out our press release and see what we say about that. So coming back to the modularity and mobility, which is a very important thing that we have to pay attention to right now. First of all, I would like to show the video, and I think we showed this last time. It's a time-lapse video of us assembling this plant literally in 10 days with 9 people. So if you guys could hit that video, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Anna. So the modularity and mobility allows us to easily move this into resources that are in diverse areas. We can put it in the desert, we can put it in the mountains, we can put it in forested areas. There are really no limitations. We just have to have a flat surface to put it on. So the key to that is the speed into the resource and production. That plant was structurally completed in only 10 months, and we built it in the middle of a pandemic. And then, as you saw, we can assemble it very quickly. We can disassemble it. We can move it. Everything is truckable. And so the predominant advantage of that is time to market. And in today's situation where the demand is so astronomical, it takes a very long time to build a stick-built plant. FMC is projecting it's going to take 5 to 6 years for their expansion plant. Their capital cost is anywhere from $800 million and up, depending on how big they make that thing. And I've read several different numbers that they're projecting. So, but 6 years to build a plant is a very long time in this industry. Solar evaporation, you're talking about historically 6 to 12 years before those things come online. So any kind of stick-built plant is just going to take a very long time. With this system, we can have the modules built, and when we really get rolling, we can run these things like an assembly line. And then it's a matter of it's an issue of picking the right modules for a given resource, transporting them, putting them in place, and starting the system up. So we believe that we could put a plant into Argentina, for instance, in less than 2 years. And that would include the construction, the transportation, the installation, and startup, along with training people and getting them going. So I think we've got a huge time advantage. The other thing is we can put these systems into resources that may have a small total volume of lithium, but they're still good resources. We can do that It might be an 8 or 10 year resource. We can put a plant in there and then we pick it up and move it to the next resource. We have not lost our investment. However, if you build a stick-built plant for those, many of them can't be done because from a traditional standpoint, you lose your investment. So the modularity is really huge. And then the other thing that was that I want to point out from the SLR report, they were very impressed with our water recovery system. So we have calculated that we can recover 98.5% of our processed water. And we were projecting that about 90% of that would come from our advanced water recovery system that is not a thermal system. Well, we actually recover 94% from that. The other recovery will be steam condensation, because we will have to do some evaporation to get the lithium chloride into the 35% range. But we can recover all of that through condensation. So our water recovery is excellent, and then the processed water is easily recycled right back into the system. That's one of our big environmental advantages. Lastly, all of the impurities that we reject stay in the brine. And so they just go right back down into the ground and where it came from. So all in all, we believe that the SLR report validates the messages that we've been giving, and we are ready to go. And so going forward, our task now is to put this system into a good lithium resource. We're looking very heavily in North America, and we anticipate getting that going very quickly, and then start making money selling lithium. So, Anna, I think we have time for questions now. It didn't take quite as long to go through that as I thought it would.
No, it didn't. Okay. Yes, we do have some questions for you. We have a question from Tim. Are you retaining Piper and Sandler, or are you planning on uplisting?
Well, we have had a very good relation with Piper, and I'm sure that we will continue to do business with them. There are other opportunities as well, and I really can't discuss that at this point. Hold on a second. Okay. My alarm was going off. So as far as the way things go, we'll make those decisions. But Piper has been very good. I like the guys there a lot, and they've been very helpful for us.
Do you have a site identified to begin extraction? And if so, when?
Well, we have several sites that we're looking at, working with several different resources. Hopefully, we will be in the next 6 to 9 months, maybe quicker. It depends on how our negotiations go with the resource owners.
And early recovery estimates were 90 to 95%. Could you clarify SLR validation numbers?
Sure. Yeah, we couldn't get to the 95% recovery because we had one of our builds, we had a bust in our evaporator. And so we couldn't utilize that evaporator. And I can't go into why that matters, but we will be able to get to much higher recovery rates. But the other thing to recognize is that was 95, that was 68% recovery from a 250 part per million brine. If you're looking at a higher concentration lithium brine, we'll be able to recover. It's easier to recover more. And so, if we were on Salar Hombre Muerto, where the lithium concentration is 600 to 800 parts per million, that's an easier brine to process than one that's only 250.
All right, that makes sense. Is the company going to begin marketing now that it has a product?
Well, what we're doing is we're certainly telling people about what we've built and what we're capable of doing. We will be marketing products once we're producing lithium chloride and lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide. we're marketing that we're certainly open to doing deals on, with people who have resources. We like the United States, and this particular unit will likely stay in the United States, and then we'll build something separate for Sorcia in Chile or Argentina.
And Derek Schmidt wants to know, for what period of time will the plant remain in one location, and what is the cost to move it?
Okay, so once we put this on a resource, that plant may stay there 20, 30 years, depending on the size of the resource. The cost to moving it, and it depends on how far you're moving it and whether you're moving it, across the ocean, things of that nature. But moving it from Lake Charles, for instance, where it's at now, to a brine resource that's here in the United States is likely to be, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars.
And is the mobile unit is it at its final location ready to produce?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
and can you share where that location is?
Yeah, we're right now. It's at the Shaw facility in Lake Charles, Louisiana. That's where most of the modules were constructed, and that's where we assembled it. And so what we did is we used tanker trucks to acquire this brine and then ship it down to the plant, and then we put that in tanks and went back and got more. So it was a continual round tripping, and we were only able to get enough brine to operate about 8% of the plant. So we couldn't bring the whole thing up. And even there, we ran through probably well over 100,000 gallons of brine. And so the thing will handle a lot of volume.
TJ asks, do you see a 60% recovery rate going up as production progresses?
I think it will, yeah.
And will IBAT be keeping Piper Sandler on board for another year?
I can't comment on that because, it's difficult to project those kinds of things. It always depends on what Piper wants to do, what we choose to do, what kinds of opportunities come up, those kinds of things. We've been very pleased with Piper, and there's certainly an opportunity for them to stay engaged with us. As I mentioned earlier, I really like the guys at Piper, and I think they've done a great job for us. But it's not wise for us to try to predict those things.
Michael Tucker wants to know, was the 68.8% lithium recovery rate reported by SLR lower than expectations? And was that a result of the 300 ppm brine that was used?
Mm-hmm. The 68% recovery, based on the fact that our evaporator was not working, was probably right in line with what we expected. Once we get the repairs done on the evaporator, we expect to see that number go up substantially. The other thing to recognize is that 68% in the world today is outstanding. Now, as I said, we fully expect to get a much higher recovery rate. In the world of DLE, I've seen a number of people touting that they'll get 90, 95% recovery, and these are companies that haven't actually done it. These are based on laboratory systems, likely synthetic systems. And some of the folks that are saying that are some of the people that are saying that you have to have a different DLE process for every single brine that you go to. And that has not been our experience. So over my history in the lithium industry, I have extracted lithium from brines from Canada, from Michigan, from Nevada, from California in the Imperial Valley, from Texas, from Arkansas, from Louisiana, from Chile, from Argentina, from Bolivia, from Mexico. Okay. We've done those in the laboratory, and now we've done some on this large scale. Of course, at Solar Hombre Merito, that thing's been operating for a long time. And this particular absorbent, or this class of absorbent, because the one that we're using now is somewhat different than FMC's, it basically doesn't, all it cares about is lithium and chloride ions. The material has a double selectivity for those two elements, and then it rejects all of the other impurities. I'm sorry, the maintenance people are outside mowing the lawn outside the building.
Always perfect timing.
Yeah, it would happen. But nonetheless, this absorbent simply does not pick up these other impurities. So the impurities are rejected and they stay in the brine. And yeah, he's almost by. He's got a blower.
Oh, we can hear.
Yeah, I know you can hear it. I can too. And there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. The maintenance gets scheduled by somebody else.
It's okay.
But at any rate, our system literally. So, for instance, the worst brine I've ever seen in terms of impurities is from the Imperial Valley in California, and that particular brine has astronomical amounts of silica, iron, manganese, zinc, sulfate, borate, and other impurities, and the absorbent deals with that. Now you have to be very careful with silica, but we had no problems extracting lithium from that brine. So if you have an absorbent with the right selectivity, then the impurity issue is not as great as it is for other kinds of systems. And I've read about some of these systems that they're using, and I can fully understand why they have issues in various situations.
Well, Mason Barnett asks, has the unit been moved from Lake Charles to a mining location in the U.S.? And is this permanent or temporary?
It has not been moved yet. We're in negotiation. We're looking at several different resources now, and we're talking to folks. And so our goal is to have a location for the equipment very quickly, within months. It may be, it's hard to project how long. I'd like to see it happen very quickly, but it depends on negotiations. Once it goes there, it will be there as long as there's resource to produce, and that is the intent with this one. And then we will, we'll start the work on building one for Argentina and Chile as soon as possible.
Jamie H. says, once you identify a site, what's the timeline to extraction and production?
Great question. So once we identify a site, and presuming that there is adequate brine flow from wells to be able to supply the equipment, we can locate this anywhere in the United States easily within probably 3 to 5 months. Just transporting it, might even just be weeks, depending on where we are. But let's just say 3 months to locate it, and then days to put it together. It'll take some time to check out all the electrical and everything, make sure it's all up and running, charge the columns with the absorbent. So, I told our board that once it's located, we ought to be in operation within 6 months. And it might be shorter than that. And then we start producing lithium chloride.
Fantastic. Ishmael wants you to talk about corporate structure. Are you going to be doing a raise? And do you think the outstanding will increase?
Well, that's a good question. And again, it's one of these things that I can't discuss, publicly. We've talked about it internally. Certainly we're going to be looking for opportunities. We're going to look at all opportunities, and we'll make decisions on a case-by-case basis.
Makes sense. Abe Dawson wants to know, are you currently audited? If so, who's the auditor? You have the price to uplist to an exchange and the market cap, so why are you still in the pinks?
That's a good question. Yeah, so we're changing auditors, and I'm not at liberty to say who that is at this point, but we'll be announcing that in a reasonable time frame, and but we're currently audited. And we passed our audit. No, there were no issues. So, yeah, our goal is to move off the pinks and move into a stronger exchange as soon as we can.
Phyllis M says, you built the plant prior to identifying the resource, which Phyllis thinks is brilliant. Can you reproduce the plant for a profit for sale or lease, or would that be counterproductive to your model?
Well, our current model right now, and by the way, thank you for the compliment. Our current model today is to acquire resources or JV with people who have resources or do some beneficial deal. I'm reluctant to see us selling the equipment because once you do that, you kind of lose control of the technology, even though we have strong patent position. Leasing technology is conceivable. That's certainly what we're doing with Insortia in Chile and Argentina. And we have a very strong contract on control that controls things on that. But our goal is to be an active lithium producer and be able to put these things in a variety of resources around the world. And we think that our speed to the resource is going to be a big driver and a benefit to everybody.
Now, Juso Koismanen says, does the projected 5,000 tons a year from 1,800 ppm brine drop with 250 to 300 ppm brine? And if so, how much?
Yeah, when we look at the 250 part per million brine, this unit will probably, and these are estimates, but it'll probably do something in the neighborhood of about 1,000 or 1,200 metric tons per year. And therefore, we would expand the number of extraction modules for the system. Now, and so the next question that comes up is, will it be more expensive? It depends on the kind of brine that we're in. If we're in a geothermal brine where it's hot and we don't have to heat the brine, then that eliminates a huge amount of our operating cost. In Chile and Argentina, everything is cold. And so part of the process there is we have to heat it. So that requires fuel. And so in these hot brines, we don't burn the fuel. So we could potentially be more economic from a operating cost standpoint, and even from a capital standpoint, because we don't have to buy as many heat exchangers and things of that nature. So a hot brine at lower lithium concentration may be better than a cold brine at high lithium concentrations from an economic standpoint.
Okay. Last question for you from Craig Anderson. Says testing was done on 300 ppm with a target for 5,000 tons of output based on 1,800 ppm. Would annual output at 300 ppm be approximately 833 tons? What would be the floor or lowest level of ppm that would still be economically viable?
Excellent question. And so the probably the lowest. And I mean, it all comes into flow. And again, if the brine is hot in today's market, you could probably economically extract maybe 100 parts per million. But we're not always going to be at 70,000 parts per million $70,000 per metric ton on spot, and that's kind of a heady, unrealistic number. If we put numbers more like $20,000 per metric ton or 30,000, it's going to be pretty hard to make money with 100 part per million brine. And I think the 250 we're probably good. Of course, the higher concentration, the better. It really depends on what the lithium demand is and how the prices hold up. But this is a commodity system, and as soon as demand as soon as you start approaching balance, these prices are going to tumble. And there's several mechanisms whereby we could see it come in balance. If, for instance, automobile companies just go crazy building hybrids, they require batteries, but not nearly as much battery capacity as a full electric. And so I think that we're going to see the prices coming down in the reasonable future. I'm hoping that we stay in the $20,000 to $30,000 per metric ton range.
Wow. Well, this is fascinating stuff, and what a time to be in this industry. John, thank you so much for joining us. And please, we want you to come back with these exciting updates.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.